Lesson 32, I will subtract a fraction from a mixed number. So let's talk about what that would look like for a minute. So here's my fraction, 2/3, and I'm going to subtract it from a mixed number. And a mixed number is a whole number plus a fraction. So we're going to subtract a fraction from a mixed number. This is what we're going to talk about in today's lesson. You are going to need your math journal today. We're not going to do a lot of work in there. We are going to do some. I want you to go ahead and label it with today's date, and please write this objective so that you will know what you were talking about in your math journal today. When you are ready, press play. All right, now I don't want you to write what you see on this page. I just want you to kind of listen and go through this with me for a minute because this relates to what we're going to do today. So if you had 3 oranges and 2 apples, and you want to take away an apple, so remember what that looks like. You would just mark one apple out. What would you have? Well, you would have 3 oranges and 1 apple, okay? All right, let's talk about this. If you had 3 dogs and 2 puppies, and you wanted to subtract 1 puppy. So we took away 1 puppy, what would you have left? 3 dogs and 1 puppy. All right, okay, so lastly, let's think about how this relates to numbers. If I have 3 ones and 2 fifths, and I want to subtract 1/5, what would I be left with? Well, I would be left with 3 ones and 1/5. This is the same thing that you're going to do when you are doing mixed numbers. So if you think of this as 3 and 1/5 minus 1/5, you take away the 1/5, you're just left with 3 and 1/5. Okay, that's the simple part. Now here's what I want you to write in your math journal. I want you to write 3 and 4/5 minus 3/5. And I want you to think to yourself, do we have enough fifths to subtract? Can we take 3/5 away from 4/5? I want you to go ahead and solve this problem. Did you get 3 and 1/5? Nothing happens to the whole number. We just take 3/5 away from 4/5, and that leaves us with 3 and 1/5. That to me is pretty simple. It gets a little bit confusing, a little bit more confusing when you get to a problem like this. I want you to go ahead and write this down in your math journal. I want you to write 4 and 1/5 minus 2/5. Now, can I take 2/5 away? And the answer this time would be no, because I only have 1/5 to take away. So we're going to have to do this a little bit differently. We're going to use 2 strategies here. We're going to do a number line, and we're also going to use the arrow way. So we're going to start with the number line. I want you to go ahead and draw this number line. Notice I went from 3 to 5. So I went ahead and labeled 3, 4, and 5. And then I divided each part into fifths. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's 4 and 1/5. So I went back 1/5, and that took me to 4. And I went back another fifth, and I ended up at 3 and 4/5. So we know that this is the answer. This is using the number line. I think this is pretty simple to understand. It takes a little bit of time, though, to draw this number line. That's why sometimes I would rather use the arrow way. Okay, so to use the arrow way, first of all, we're going to think about where we are beginning here. So we're beginning at 4 and 1/5. So I've got 4 and 1/5, and I'm trying to take away 2/5. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take away 1/5. And where does that leave me? When I've got 4 and 1/5 minus 1/5, I'm at 4. So let's think for a minute about why I took away 1/5. Well, the reason why I took away 1/4 or 1/5 was because I wanted to go from 4 and 1/5 backwards to the next whole number. And I knew that if I took away 1/5, that would leave 1 more fifth to take away. So now I can say, what is 1/5 minus 4? Well, that would leave 3 and 4/5. So this is the arrow way. And even though I think that this can be much faster, you have to be able to understand these concepts of these fractions to be able to do it. So you've got to think to yourself, which one of these makes the most sense to you? Do I understand this number line? Am I capable of drawing this number line? Or do I understand the arrow way? That's going to be a question that only you can answer. All right, so let's go ahead and get at our problem set, and we're going to do a little bit of practice today. You're going to notice, first of all, it says model with a number line or the arrow way. Well, my suggestion would be, first of all, let's look to see if we're able to take away 1/4. So if I've got 3 and 3/4 and I'm just taking away 1/4, then this is going to be pretty simple here. So I've got 3 and 3/4, and I'm going to take away 1/4. Well, that's just going to leave 3 and 2/4. Okay, so that's pretty easy to model with an arrow way. That's pretty easy to think about. All I did was just take away 1/4 from these 3/4 and less 2/4, okay? Same thing here. I've got 3/10 and I'm taking away from 7/10. That's simple to do. I'm going to take 4 and 7/10. I'm going to take away 3/10. That's going to leave me at 4 and 4/10. So again, nothing difficult about that. I'm just taking 3/10 away from 7/10, okay? Here's where it gets a little bit complicated. You'll notice in C, I'm trying to take away 2/3, but I only have 1/3. So here's where it gets just a little bit confusing. For this problem, I'm going to use the number line, not because I think the number line's easier or because I think the number line's better, but I want to give you a fair chance to see both strategies so that you can choose a strategy that makes the most sense to you. So if I'm going to be taking away 2/3, I know I have to begin with 4 because I'm going to be going past 5, and I have to go all the way to 6 because if I only go from 4 to 5, I'm not going to have 5 and 1/3. So here's 5. Now I'm going to divide these into thirds. So that means I'm just going to draw 2 lines. So that's pretty simple on this number line, no big deal. So I've got to first identify where 5 and 1/3 is. Here's 5. And these are thirds, so this is going to be 5 and 1/3. So when I take away 1/3, that's going to take me to 5, and then I've got to take away another third because remember I'm taking away 2/3. When I take away one more third, I'm here at 4. Here's 4 and 1/3. I'm at 4 and 2/3. So that will be my answer, 4 and 2/3. Okay? Now, let's take a look at what that would look like using the number way, or the arrow way, okay? I'm going to start at 5 and 1/3, and I'm going to subtract until I get to the next whole number, which would be 5. So that means I would take away 1/3. Well, I have to take away 2/3. So I've already taken away 1/3. Now I have to take away one more third, and that's going to take me to 4 and 2/3. Again, this is much faster. However, I had to know that when I took 1/3 away from this 5, that took me to 4 and 2/3. So this may not be something that you feel like you understand. And in that case, you're going to want to stick with the number line. All right, so let's take a look at D. So first of all, I'm going to evaluate. Can I take 4/5 away from 3/5? And the answer is no. So let's take a look at what this looks like using the number line. So I have to go all the way to 10 so that I can get to 9 and 3/5. And I can't begin at 9 because I'm going back past 9. So I'm going to have 8, 9, and 10. And I have to divide these into fifths, which means I have to draw 4 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm starting at 9 and 3/5. So here's 9, 9 and 1/5, 9 and 2/5, 9 and 3/5. So I'm starting right here. And when I go back to 9, how many fifths would that be? That would be 1, 2, 3. So there's minus 3/5. But I have to take away one more fifth because remember I'm taking away 4/5. So let's see where that would take me. So now I'm at 8, 8 and 1/5, 8 and 2/5, 8 and 3/5, 8 and 4/5. So this will be my answer. 8 and 3/5 minus 4/5 equals, 9 and 3/5 minus 4/5 equals 8 and 4/5. So let's look at what that would look like using the arrow way. So I'm at 9 and 3/5. And I want to subtract until I get to the next whole number, which would be 9. So that means I'm going to take away 3/5. Now, I'm taking away a total of 4/5. So that means I have to take away one more fifth. And when I take 1/5 away from 9 wholes, that it leaves 8 and 4/5. Again, I want you to be thinking about which of these strategies, the number line or the arrow way, makes the most sense to you. You have to think about that yourself. Which of these do I understand? Which of these can I comfortably do all by myself? All right, now, this time we're going to choose a different strategy. It says use decomposition to subtract the fractions. Model with the number line or the arrow way. Now I want you to notice first of all what we did here. We took 4/5, and because I cannot take 4/5 away from 3/5, I decompose it into 3/5 and 1/5. The reason why they were decomposed this way is because I can take away 5/5, and then I'm going to take away one more fifth, okay? So, again, we've got the number line way or the arrow way. I'm not going to do both ways on all these problems because it's going to take too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the number line for A and B, and then no, I'm not. I'm going to use a number line for A, and I'm going to use the arrow way for B, okay? All right, so let's start with A, and I'm going to start with my number line. My number line has to begin at 4 and end at 6. So I have to have 4, 5, and 6, and I'm talking about fifths. So I have to divide each of these parts into 5 parts, like this. All right, now, so I'm going to go to 5 and 3/5. So here's 5, and I've got 1 5 and 1/5, 5 and 2/5. Here's 5 and 3/5. So I'm going to begin by taking away 3/5 because that's going to take me right to the next whole number, which is 5. And then I'm going to take away one more fifth, and let's see where that puts me. I'm at 4, 4 and 1/5, 4 and 2/5, 4 and 3/5, 4 and 4/5. So 5 and 3/5 minus 4/5 equals 4 and 4/5. Okay, for B, I'm going to use the same, I'm going to decompose, but this time I'm going to use the arrow way. Okay, so I'm going to decompose this 2/4 into 1/4 and 1/4. The reason why I'm decomposing it this way is because I can take away 1/4, and then I'll have to take away one more fourth so that I can take away the total. But I'm doing it this way because I can easily take away 1/4. So if I begin at 4 and 1/4, and I want to go to the next whole number, I'm going to take away 1/4. So I'm taking away this part. This part is gone. All right, now I've got to take away one more fourth, and that's going to leave me at 3 and 3/4. Now, one way you can think of this is, well, 4 is the same thing as 3 and 4/4. This is the same thing as 4 if you think about it in these terms. And if you take 1/4 away from 4/4, that's going to leave 3 and 3/4. All right, for C and D, I want you to try to do one or both of these problems by yourself. You may choose to do either strategy. You may choose the arrow way, or you may choose to use the number line. It does not matter to me. You use a strategy that makes the most sense to you. If you get stuck, press play, and I will walk you through it the way that I'm going to solve it, okay? All right, so hopefully you at least attempted to do C all by yourself. You didn't just keep on going without pausing the video. When you do that, you are keeping yourself from understanding. You have to pause the video and try to think by yourself. So hopefully you chose to do that. If not, do it now. All right, so first of all, we're going to decompose this. I'm going to decompose this into 1/3 and 1/3 because together that makes 2/3, but I can easily take away 5/3. I'm going to choose to do the arrow way. If you chose to do the number line, that is perfectly acceptable. All right, so I'm going to start at 5 and 1/3. And I'm going to take away 1/3 because that's going to get me to my next whole number. Now I've got to take away one more third and see where that gets me. So I can do this in my head, but if you're having trouble with this, you can think of 5 as the whole number 4 and 3/3. So 3/3 minus 1/3 is 2/3. So this would be 4 and 2/3. So hopefully that's the answer you got, regardless of which strategy you used. Okay, let's take a look at D. So I cannot take 5/8 away from 3/8, so I'm going to decompose this. Again, I'm going to decompose this into 3/8 because that's what I can easily take away. And then I would have 2/8 left over because these together make 5/8. So I'm going to again use the arrow way because I find it a little bit more efficient. So if I'm at 2 and 3/8 and I want to get to 2, that means I'm taking away 3/8. So I've already taken away the 3/8. Now I have to take away 2/8 from 2. So again, if you need to, you can think of this as the whole number 1 and 8/8. Together, this equals 2. 8/8 minus 2/8 would leave me with 1 and 6/8. Okay, we got a couple more here to do. All right, this time it says decompose the total to subtract the fractions. So let's look at what they did here. So they said, well, we can take 2 and 1/8 and we can break it down into 2 and 1/8 and 1 whole, as you can see here. And then they said, okay, well, let's take 2 1/8, and then we're going to add 5/8 to it. Okay, so let's take a look at what they did. First of all, they decomposed the large number, which is 3 1/8. We're trying to take away 3/8. Well, I can't take 3/8 away from this 3 1/8. So they said, well, let's take 2 1/8 and break it down into 2 1/8 and 1 whole. So they said, well, this 1 whole is the same thing as 8/8. Well, I can take 3/8 away from this 8/8, and that leaves 5/8. So now we're trying to get our new total. We took away the 3/8. Now we have to go back to our 2 1/8 and add 5/8, and that gives us the answer of 2 6/8. Now you might be thinking, huh? So go through this one with me and see if this makes a little bit more sense. All right, so we can't take 7/8 away from 1/8. So let's decompose this into 4 1/8. So do you see what I did here? I took out a whole. But instead of putting a 1 like they did here, I'm going to make this 8/8. Now I'm going to subtract 7/8 from this 8/8, and that's going to leave 1/8. Now, to get my answer, I'm going to take 4 1/8, which is this number right here, and I'm going to add this fraction, and that gives me 4 2/8. You might still be thinking, huh? Let's try one more. Maybe this will help you. All right, so we've got 4 3/5. So I'm going to decompose this into 4 3/5. So see what I did here? I took out a whole, and I'm going to replace that with 5/5. This still equals 5 3/5. I just decomposed it. Here's 1, and if you added 1 to 4, you would get 5 3/5. But I'm decomposing it this way because I can easily take 4/5 from 5/5, and that leaves 1/5. Now I'm going to take what's left here and go back and add it to this mixed number, and then I'll get my answer. 4 3/5 plus 1/5 equals 4 4/5. All right, let's try D. So we have 4 4/6 and 6 6s. So I've still got 5 4/6. I just decomposed it. So I'm going to take 5 6s from 6 6s, and that leaves 1 6. So now I'm going to add this part of my number bond to what's left over here. So I've got 4 4/6 plus 1 6 equals 4 5 6s. Okay? Now, if this is starting to make a little bit of sense to you, pause the video and try to do this one all by yourself. If you're still thinking, huh? Walk through this one with me, okay? All right, so I'm going to do 5 4/12 and 12/12. So here's how I'm decomposing this. Now I'm going to subtract 7/12 from 12/12, and that leaves 5/12. So I did take away 7/12. Okay, I took it away from 12/12. Now, to find the answer, I have to take what's on this part of the number bond and put it back on this part of the number bond, and the total will give me the answer. So 5 4/12 plus 5/12 equals 5 9/12. All right, so try to do as much of this problem all by yourself. If the only part that you can get is a decomposition, then you have to press play. That's fine. But I want you to try to do part of it by yourself. Pause the video right now and do as much of this as you can by yourself. Okay, so hopefully you at least got this part. 8 1/8 and 8/8. Now I'm going to take 5/8 away from 8/8, and that leaves 3/8. So now I'm going to take what's left here and add it back to this part of my number bond. And that gives me 8 1/8 plus 3/8, which equals 8 4/8. Okay? Again, I want you to try to pause the video and do as much of this as you can. If you get stuck, you can always press play. All right, so we've got 6 1/6 and 6 6s minus 5 6, which equals 1 6. So I'm going to add this part of the number bond to what I have left over here. So I have 6 and 1 6 plus 1 6 equals 6 and 2 6s. Let's look at H. So by now you should be getting pretty good at this part. You should be able to say 7 and 3/10, and this part would be, okay, so now you're going to subtract 4/10 from 10/10, and that's going to leave 6/10. So I'm going to add 6/10 to this part of my number bond. So I have 7 and 3/10 plus 6/10, which equals 7 and 9/10. Okay, try this one by yourself. Come back when you're finished and let's see how you did. Okay, so I have 11 and 3/5, and then I have 5/5. I'm going to subtract 4/5, and that leaves 1/5. So I have 1/5 plus 11 and 3/5. So let's see what that gets us all together. 11 and 3/5 plus 1/5 equals 11 and 4/5. Okay, so last one here, 10 and 2 6s and 6 6s. I'm going to take away 5 6s from 6 6, and that leaves 1 6. And I'm going to add this part of my number bond to this part of the number bond to get a total. 10 and 2 6s plus 1 6 equals 10 and 3 6s. Okay, so I've showed you 3 different strategies today for how you can subtract a fraction from a mixed number. Now, the reason why I showed you 3 different strategies is because all 3 strategies use a different mindset. You need to decide which of these strategies is the most efficient. And what I mean by that is which of these strategies can you complete in the most timely manner and still get the right answer. Okay, that's what you're looking for.